Airports are usually buzzing with life, announcements blaring, luggage wheels clattering, and people rushing to the gates. But here in Cholpon Ata, there's an airport where none of that happens anymore. Just an empty runway, broken windows, and a strange silence. Today, we're exploring Cholpon Ata's abandoned airport, and trust me, this is not the kind of layover you'll ever forget. The first thing you notice is the runway, but it's not used by planes anymore. Instead, it's a road. Cars zip along it at full speed like it's the most normal thing in the world to drive down a former landing strip. Next up, the car park. The markings are still there, little faded boxes showing exactly where people once parked before catching their flights. Now the whole lot is cracked and overgrown, like a ghost sketch of what used to be. If you squint, you can almost picture families hauling suitcases out of their cars, rushing to make a flight that doesn't exist anymore. We were desperate to discover what it was like inside. At first it looked impossible, doors locked, glass shattered across the ground, but we kept trying. Dodging the glass, we pushed at every entrance we could find, and incredibly, we managed to walk right in. Some areas were still gated off, but enough was open to give us a real glimpse of this place. The creepy part was that it didn't look like decades of decay. It honestly felt like people had been in there recently vandalizing parts of the terminal, fresh damage on top of old ruins. For me, the most fascinating area was the old ticket office. You could clearly see where Soviet citizens once stood in line to buy their tickets or check in for their flights. But then it must have been busy, full of excitement and chatter. Now it just feels eerie, like the ghosts of those travellers are still waiting in line, but the counters are empty forever. So how did this place end up like this? Cholpon Ata's airport dates back to the Soviet era, when Lake Issyk-Kul was one of the most popular holiday spots in the entire USSR. If you were a Soviet citizen in the 70s or 80s and wanted a beach holiday, you didn't have many options. Foreign travel was almost impossible, but Issyk-Kul, that was the jewel of Central Asia. Back then, the airport would have been alive with people every summer. Charter flights flew in from Moscow and Almaty, and families would spill off planes in their holiday clothes, kids clutching buckets and spades, and the parents dreaming of sun and relaxation. For many, this was their only chance to experience something like a seaside resort. Issyk-Kul was often called the Soviet Riviera, and this airport was the gateway. The design was pure Soviet ambition. A runway long enough for medium-sized jets, a squat little control tower, and a terminal that, though plain, was built to handle thousands of arrivals. You can imagine the scene, buses waiting outside to take holidaymakers to their sanatoriums, loudspeakers announcing departures in Russian, and ticket offices packed with people heading for the lake. But everything changed in 1991 when the Soviet Union collapsed. Overnight, the state holiday system, where trips were subsidized for workers and their families, just vanished. Without it, the steady flow of tourists disappeared. Airlines stopped scheduling flights here, funding dried up, and Cholpon Ata's airport had no way to survive. For a few years, smaller local flights still used the strip, but by the 2000s, even those stopped. Larger airports in Bishkek and Tamchi took over, and this place slipped into silence. In just a few decades, a once busy airport went from the pride of the Soviet travel network to an abandoned shell. Standing here now, you can almost hear those echoes, the announcements, the chatter, the roars of the planes, fading into the wind. The control tower here is tiny compared to what you'd see at a modern international airport. It's only a couple of stories high, almost like a watchtower rather than the commanding towers you'd find in Moscow or Almaty. From the outside, it still has its square Soviet-style design, concrete walls, small windows, and a little viewing deck on top where air traffic controllers once had a perfect view of the single runway. Standing beneath it now, it feels eerie. You look up and think about how, decades ago, controllers were up there directing planes in and out, talking to pilots on headsets, scanning the horizon for approaching aircraft. Today, it's silent, empty, and slowly crumbling. Some of the glass panes are missing, others are cracked, and weeds are starting to climb the base. Incredibly, while we were visiting, we found a couple of tiny abandoned dogs at the abandoned airport, so it was really sad to see. However, as you can see from the clips, they are incredibly cute and we really wanted to take them home with us. Cholpon Ata's abandoned airport is a strange reminder of how quickly the world changes. A place once built with big ambitions, now slowly being swallowed by time. But here's the thing, Cholpon Ata itself is anything but forgotten. Just minutes away you've got Issyk-Kul Lake, one of the largest alpine lakes in the world, shimmering under the mountains. You've got the famous open-air petroglyph museum where ancient carvings are scattered across the rocks, telling stories from thousands of years ago. And beyond that, there are endless trails into the mountains where you can hike, ride horses, or just soak up the views. So while the airport sits silent and eerie, Cholpon Ata is full of life, history, and natural beauty. It's the kind of place you can easily spend a couple of days exploring, relaxing by the lake, and discovering little corners of Kyrgyzstan that most travellers never get to see. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget I've already explored other amazing spots here in Kyrgyzstan, so be sure to check out my other videos after this one. And of course, this is just the start. We'll be travelling all across Kyrgyzstan from remote valleys to alpine lakes and then heading over into Kazakhstan to discover even more hidden gems and Soviet relics. So if that sounds like your kind of adventure, make sure you hit subscribe, tap the notification bell and give this video a like if you found it interesting. Drop a comment too, I'd love to hear what you think about abandoned places like this. Central Asia has so much to offer and I can't wait to share the journey with you.